Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. I'm Amanda Pyburn, a member here and your service leader this morning. We gather on the unceded lands of the Muskogee Nation of Florida. We are grateful for the land. If you are visiting today, we especially welcome you. You can learn more about us on your order of service or on our website, uufec.com. You have found a safe space where you are among friends. Whatever your background, if you are looking for acceptance and willing to work toward a more just world, this place is for you. Announcements are listed in your order of service, as well as descriptions of upcoming services. And the description for next week didn't make it in, so I'm going to read it to you because it's important. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about all the committee work, all the volunteers, all the things we do to keep this place running. So that's what she's referring to here. Recently, we learned the importance of all working together to produce a vibrant and exciting fellowship. We also need to feed those fires with our annual donation. This important service, next week, will present to the congregation our hopes for the coming year and the funds we need to make it happen, to keep us vibrant. This presentation will be followed up by an April 27th congregational meeting to vote on our 25-26 budget. Please join us for this important first step, and you'll get your pledge packet next Sunday as well. After refreshments and conversation following the service, we do have some small discussion groups. They are listed as well. We have the speaker's circle if you want to come up front here and talk about the topic our speaker will present. We have choir practice. Anybody who's interested in singing, come on over to the Harmony Room. And Lauren Boyer is doing Ancient History of Religions. So take your choice. And now the prelude prepares us for the service. Our chalice will be lit by Alex and Liliana. Our entire service this morning is put together by a Unitarian Universalist minister named Reverend Dr. Elaine Strawn, and these are her words. Drawing from the fire within us, we remember that we are all one, and it is this fire, collectively, which fuels our chalice. Together, we send light into the world. She also provided our call to worship. It's adapted from The Great Turning by Christine Fry. I think you'll like it. You've asked me to tell you of the Great Turning, of how we saved the world from disaster. The answer is both simple and complex. We turned. For hundreds of years, we had turned away as life on Earth grew more precarious. We turned away from the homeless men on the streets, the stench from the river, the children orphaned in Iraq, the mothers dying of AIDS in Africa. We turned away because that's what we had been taught. to turn away from our pain, from the hurt in another's eyes, from the drunken father, from the friend betrayed. Always we were told, in actions louder than words, to turn away, turn away. And so we became a lonely people, caught up in a world moving too quickly, too mindlessly toward its own demise, until it seemed as if there was no safe space to turn. No place, inside or out, that did not remind us of fear or terror, despair and loss, fear and grief. Yet, on one of those days, someone did turn. Turn to face the pain. Turn to face the stranger. Turn to look at the smoldering world and the hatred seething in too many eyes. Turn to face himself, herself. And then another turned, and another, and another. And as they wept, they took each other's hands, until whole groups of people were turning, young and old, gay and straight, people of all colors, all nations, all religions, turning not only to the pain and the hurt, but to the beauty, gratitude, and love, turning to one another with forgiveness and a longing for peace in their hearts. At first, all this turning made people dizzy, silly even. There were people standing to one side, gawking, criticizing, trying to knock the turners down. But the people turning kept getting up, kept helping one another to their feet. Their laughter and kindness brought others into the turning circle, until even the naysayers began to smile and sway. As the people turned, they began to spin, reweaving the web of life, mending the shocking tears, knitting it back together with the colors of the earth, sewing on tiny mirrors so the beauty of each person, each creature, each plant, each life might be seen and respected. And as the people turned, as they spun like the earth through the universe, the web wrapped around them like a soft baby blanket, making it clear all were loved, nothing separate. And by this love reached into every crack and crevice, the people began to wake and wonder, to breathe and give thanks, to celebrate together. And so the world was saved, but only as long as you, too, sweet one, remember to turn. Isn't that wonderful? I love that. Please stand as you're able to sing our opening hymn, Once to Every Soul and Nation, which is number 119. It may not be too familiar to you, so Cecile's going to play it all the way through first once before we start to sing. It is the time for all ages, and we have quite a few kids this morning, so come on up. Good job. So you may have noticed that it is Chocolate Communion Day. Is that why you all came today? So, well, now you do. So you already know what chocolate is, but what is communion? What does communion mean? Suppose I go out into the woods to commune with nature, not eating it. Communicating. I'm making a connection. A communion is an emotional or a mental connection, a response, a feeling together, feeling of one with something. Jesus engaged his followers with the Jewish custom of sharing a meal. For him, the shared meal represented the love of God. They were making a connection with God. Out of that same tradition, the Universalists, who are part of our heritage, used the chalice of communion as a symbol of God's caring love. Love is our best expression of God. It's a root understanding of Unitarian Universalism. Anybody been here for the flower communion? There you go. Well, we didn't eat the flowers either, right? But we used that symbol to make a connection. The flowers were all beautiful, but all different, just like us. And coming together, this is listening time, right? This is a listening time. And coming together like flowers in a vase, we can have the biggest impact. But this is Valentine's Day, and we are sharing chocolate. Yeah. Still listening time. Sorry. Your time's coming. So, on Valentine's Day, we share chocolate. It stimulates our endorphins, helps us feel valued and connected, and reminds us of the love we share together. So, we have so many of you that maybe you can buddy up or just decide who wants to, but we have trays of little chocolates that we need passed out to everybody here. And then when everybody has one, and don't forget to save one for yourself, then you can put the trays back on the snack table because I think there's going to be some extras. Now the trick is, don't open it and eat until everyone's served, okay? So, helpers? You guys do one together? These are free trade chocolates, meaning the producers are protecting their workers and the environment. We are reminded that much of the food and many of the goods we enjoy are produced by exploited peoples. May we use this knowledge to work for the fair treatment of workers around the world, remembering that our choices matter. Thank you. What we purchase has a direct and meaningful impact on the quality of workers' lives and the communities in which they live. As you're waiting, you might want to meditate on what makes life sweet for you, what you love the most. There's plenty for all, so you can trust you will get your share. That's part of the symbolism of communion. And I think everybody has one. So, hold it up high. As we share in this chocolate communion, may our sense of blessing and being blessed increase. And may we deepen the covenant of our community by becoming more aware of the love we share. And now you can eat your chocolate. And then we're going to sing the kids out. Don't forget to take your trash with you. The sharing of joys, milestones, and concerns is a tradition in our fellowship. You're welcome to come up to the microphone, drop a glass pebble into the water. You don't have to speak. It can be silent or speaking a few words into the mic. This practice shares our joys and helps us support each other in sorrows. Remember to tell of others only with their permission. end us with some words by Maureen Killoran. Spirit of all blessing, be with us in the ordinariness of our days. May hope's light, hope's light guard us and keep cynicism from our hearts. May the energy of laughter build endurance for the dark times of our lives. May creativity's vision grant the possibility of seeing old relationships with new eyes. May the oil of healing keep us from anger's hardness or despair. May the mantle of humility give courage to admit when we are wrong. May compassion's loom weave in us the discipline to forgive. May patience help us bear in mind that ours is not the only scale of time. May the flame of justice be a beacon for the choices we must make. May peace be ever in us and sustain our stressful days. Spirit of all blessing, be with us in the ordinariness of our days. After our song of dedication, the greeters will take up the offering. If you're paying your pledge with a check, please make a note of that in the memo line. All other donations are split equally with a local charity, and it's very local this month. It's our very own UUFEC Food Pantry, which is just out on John Sims. Please be generous in your support of this very local UUFEC effort. And give Kathy and Bill a hug because they have been in charge of this for a long time. Our message, as I said earlier, is by the Reverend Dr. Elaine Strawn of the Unitarian Universalist Association Congregational Life Staff. It's called Wise Choices.
Good morning. This is Reverend Dr. Elaine Strawn, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. I want to start our time together by reading going to fall, the blessings of an imperfect. Good morning. This is Reverend Dr. Elaine Strawn, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. I want to start our time together by reading Life, written by Philip Simmons. We must understand what we can and learn to dwell richly in the mystery of what we cannot. I turn to religion in particular because it is with religious language that human beings have most consistently, rigorously, and powerfully explored the harrowing business of rescuing joy from heartbreak. Life is both more and less than we hoped for, both more comic and tragic than we know. Comedy ends in happiness, while tragedy ends in wisdom. We want, I suppose, to be happily wise and wisely happy. Only then can we know the full blessing of our imperfect lives. Wise choices. It seems there are a lot of choices to be made right now in the world in which we find ourselves. What do I stand for? What do I really believe? How closely do I hold our principles and our shared values as Unitarian Universalists? How deeply do I believe in them? They're certainly interesting times. My late father-in-law used to remind the family very often that he would bless us with these interesting times, borrowing that from the Chinese proverb. And these certainly are interesting times in which to be alive that take all the resources and the brain power and the emotional intelligence and the physical stability that we possibly can have. It's a divisive time in some ways. There are also many, many people coming together with new ideas, new hopes, new resources. Both of those things are operating at the same time. There's an old Girl Scouts of America song whose title is Looking Wider, and look wider still. Elder Marshall reminds us in the story for Time for All Ages this morning that if we walk together well, we will learn to see with both eyes. That's a skill that we need to have. I've learned a little bit about that as the news has basically driven me almost beyond the bend. And one of those sources is Fix the News, which has brought to us a podcast called Hope is a Verb. I love that phrase. And one of those episodes featured two women, Peta and Marwa. Peta is an Israeli who founded Women Wage Peace, and Marwa is a Palestinian who founded Women of the Sun. And for 10 years, they've been working on peace. They've been working together. They have brought those groups together to try to speak to each of their governments for what they want, for peace. These two peoples that have been siblings for ages and generations coming together in peace, marching in the streets, encouraging people to speak out, trying to get the powers that be to listen to the possibilities. How often have we all found ourselves in that place? and we need to continue. I've also started listening almost news backwards, in that listening to statisticians who can put together history, recent history, in a way that looks at what is really happening as opposed to what is the immediate reality. And one of those people, historian and statistician from the Netherlands, Rutger Bregman, wrote a book, Humankind. And he came out from his analysis, he came out with 5 things. The first thing is that people are basically decent. We want to help one another. When a house is on fire, who's the first person there? It's usually a neighbor, a bystander. It could be a stranger. And the fire department and the emergency folks get there, but it's usually the first person is a neighbor. We are basically decent and want to help one another survive. We are also friendly. We have evolved, he has learned, to be friendly. Because without cooperation, without listening, we can't build things, we can't build cathedrals, we can't build universities, we can't build grand ideas. We get along. The third one follows closely, and that's that we're basically nonviolent. That even though Hollywood likes to point us in the direction of the monsters that we all are, that studies from battlefields show ammunition left in guns, soldiers having a very difficult time shooting. And when they do, the trauma that comes from that is so severe. Basically, we are nonviolent. The fourth one is, you know this, we usually get what we assume. If we walk into a meeting expected to be bored, or to a sermon expected to be bored, we probably will be. But if we're listening with all of our attention, if we're present in all of our being, with a sense of hope and openness, we will probably be very richly rewarded. And finally, he says, let yourself be scammed once in a while. He asks the audience when he speaks, how many people have never been scammed? And usually it's only 2 or 3. And he says to them, you need to go see a psychotherapist. You're not trusting enough. Because in life, and think about your life, how many times have you offered help? And how many times have you been scammed? He says, predominant evidence indicates that we really can afford to trust one another. We can afford to do that. We are basically decent. So I finish the book and I sit back once again and say, what is it that I really believe about people and about our strength? What do I really believe about the possibilities of justice and transformation? And do I really believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all? And sometimes I doubt. Most of the time, I can bring myself back. Joanna Macy is famous for so many things, but one of the things is her great turning ideals. And she talks about the bardo that we're in, that concept borrowed from Tibetan Buddhism, about being in the in-between times, being in the not yet arrived, being in the what's going to happen next section, and that's very, very hard. And it takes a lot of courage. And it takes a lot of wisdom. And that's where we find ourselves. So she looks at reality in 3 ways. Business as usual, status quo, just go about your business and whatever happens, happens. The second one is the great unraveling. Oi, it is all falling apart. What can I do? This is the end. And the third one, the great turning. That we deeply take an inventory of what's going on in the world around us and how life-sustaining is it, and where it isn't, how can we contribute our resources of time and gifts and energy to creating new ways that are indeed life-sustaining for all of nature. not just human beings, but from Mother Earth herself. That's where we are to be. And this is what she writes. When we dare to face the cruel social and ecological realities we've been accustomed to, courage is born, and powers within us are liberated to reimagine and even perhaps one day to rebuild the world. That's what we've always been about. That's been our history. May that continue to be our history as we go farther. We have so many sources from which to learn, so many people, so many folks who have weathered the storm that's been awful, and they keep on going. The dismissed voices among us that have so much to teach us, the disenfranchised peoples, and the truths that they hold. Wisdom abounds. And again, as Elder Marshall says, if we walk together well, we will learn to see with two eyes. Deborah Eden Tull, writes in her book, Relational Mindfulness, imagine if, as young people, our parents had sat us down and said to us, quote, we welcome you to this incredible and sobering journey called life. In this lifetime, you're going to experience more love and beauty than you could possibly imagine. And you will also experience more pain and suffering than you think you can bear. Given this reality, let us prepare you with much awareness, wisdom, courage, resilience, and self-compassion, as you're going to need it for this journey. You will experience all of it. So let us prepare you with the ability to see clearly and listen deeply as you navigate this journey called life. You will have what it takes to meet whatever life brings you. Your unique contribution matters here, and you're not alone. Imagine a world that generation of young people could create, and I think are creating. What kind of a world would you like to create? Start with your own family, your own neighborhood, your own friendship network, and move on and get bigger. Where do you see the links? Where do you see the common interests, the common commitments, the common joy? And keep building as we go. Get as specific as possible. You are paving a highway of hope, and in the same time, you're paving a highway of reality, of possibility in the neural pathways in your brain. Wouldn't it be great if we had 8-lane neural pathways of realistic hope and wisdom to enter into the great turning? Finally, nature is a great teacher for me. Dandelions teach me a lot. They're not my best friends, I think, but Robin Wall Kimmerer reminds us that dandelions both will feed us with great nutrition, and their roots will break up clay and make the ground more open to seeds and planting. Dandelions, those little flowers with a hollow stem, put forth a plant that can crawl up through almost any kind of concrete we put down. That is strength. And that's one of the things that nature has to teach me. Practice. Practice what you could create. This being human is not an easy assignment. I'm not sure it was meant to be. Find a practice that helps you into wholeness. Mine is Tai Chi, with balance and agility, deep breathing, and centering. Find something that can center you, that can welcome in your mind, your emotions, your soul, your body, all of you, to give you strength, compassion, and wisdom. Take a deep breath and feel your power. Feel your existence. Acknowledge in gratitude who you are and the gifts that you have to share. And then walk into the next moment together. Blessed be, and amen.
I've never mentioned this, but if you would ever like a written transcript of any of these recorded sermons, they do send us that. So it would be very easy to just email it to you if you wanted to pass it on to share it with someone else. Our final hymn is in the teal hymnal, We Are. We're going to sing it along with a recording, and the words will be on the screen.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
Our closing words are also written by the Reverend Strawn. And the people looked up, In the sky east of the Mississippi, there was a brilliant light. And in that brilliant light were blue flames and red flames and yellow flames and white-hot flames, lighting up the sky with tremendous light. And holding up that flame were hands, old hands and young hands, black hands and white hands and yellow hands and red hands. And they took turns holding, so none were burned by the flame. And that light rested over our community here, and the people saw it. And on the next day, the people went to work and mowed their lawns and marched for justice and cared for the babies, and their schedules weren't any different. But somehow that light gave them hope, and their days were a little lighter. People of this beloved community, we have a task this week. We will hold up the flame together, and we will challenge and feed and care for each other so deeply that when this week is done, that flame will not disperse and go out. The flame will burn on and on in all the towns we bless with our courage and compassion. Blessed be and amen. Please stay seated for the postlude. Thank you for coming. Enjoy some chocolate and other goodies in the back, and we'll see you for second hour.